Ambassador Kellyan Vorth clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among the Zephyrian species. Around the massive circular chamber of the Galactic Defense Council, representatives from 47 different worlds shared similar expressions of amusement. The humans, those strange bipedal creatures from the outer rim world they called Earth, had just presented their contribution to the galaxy's collective arsenal. "Let me understand this correctly," Kellyan said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made Zephyrian speech so distinctive. "Your species wishes to contribute what you call nuclear weapons to our defensive capabilities?" The human representative, a woman named Admiral Sarah Chen, stood with her back straight, despite the obvious mockery surrounding her. Her pale skin showed no signs of the embarrassment that many species would display in such a situation. "That is correct, Ambassador Vorth. We believe our nuclear technology could prove valuable in defending against the Devourers." The chamber erupted in a symphony of alien laughter. The Korthak delegation made deep rumbling sounds that vibrated through the floor. The crystalline Valathi chimed like broken bells. Even the usually stoic Taraxi allowed small hisses to escape their breathing apparatus. High Commander Zilix of the Andromedian fleet leaned forward on his forearms, his silver eyes glowing with condescension. "Admiral Chen, your species has been part of the galactic community for exactly 73 standard cycles. In that time, you have contributed nothing but primitive chemical propulsion systems and basic projectile weapons. Now you offer us what amounts to barely controlled atomic fission." Admiral Chen's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. "Our nuclear weapons are more sophisticated than you might assume. We have fusion devices that can what?" interrupted Kellyan Vorth. "Release energy equivalent to a few thousand standard explosive units? Young human, the Korthak hunting rifles produce more destructive force than your most powerful nuclear device." This statement brought fresh waves of laughter from the assembled delegates. The Korthak representative, a massive creature with thick gray hide and 6 arms, raised one hand in a gesture of mock acknowledgement. Admiral Chen looked around the chamber, her brown eyes taking in every sneering face and hostile posture. "Perhaps you would allow us to demonstrate." "Absolutely not," High Commander Zilix cut her off. "The Council's time is precious. We face the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. The Devourer fleet grows stronger with each world they consume. We need real weapons, not the atomic toys of a species that has barely learned to leave its own solar system." The humans had been the last species to join the Galactic Defense Council, and their late arrival had not been welcomed. When the Devourer crisis began, emerging from dark space beyond the galactic rim, every civilized world had contributed their most advanced military technology to the collective defense. The Zephyrians provided plasma cannon arrays that could melt through asteroid fields. The Andromedians contributed quantum disruptors that could tear apart molecular bonds at the subatomic level. The Valathi shared their reality-warping technology that could fold space itself into a weapon, and the humans offered nuclear bombs. "Your species," continued High Commander Zilix, "seems to fundamentally misunderstand the scale of the threat we face. The Devourers don't just destroy planets, they consume them entirely, converting all matter into dark energy to fuel their expansion. Their ship hulls are composed of collapsed matter from dead stars. A nuclear explosion would be like throwing sand at a mountain." Admiral Chen shifted her weight, and for the first time, something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "With respect, High Commander, I don't think you understand what we're offering." Kellyan Vorth's mandibles clicked again. "Oh, but we do. Your species discovered atomic fission approximately 250 of your years ago. You used it to wage war against your own kind, then eventually learned to harness it for power generation. This is a pattern we've seen in dozens of emerging civilizations. It's a perfectly normal step in technological development, but hardly revolutionary." The truth was that most of the council members had gone through similar phases in their development. The Zephyrians had their crystal fire period. The Andromedians had discovered antimatter weapons early in their spacefaring days. Every species eventually learned to split atoms or fuse them together. It was as common as learning to manipulate gravity or bend light. "But surely," said the Taraxi representative through its translation device, "the humans understand that such weapons are obsolete in modern warfare?" Our particle beam arrays can deliver the same energy with precision targeting across multiple light years. Why would we need crude explosives that irradiate their target areas? Admiral Chen opened her mouth to respond, but Kellyanne Vorth raised a hand for silence. The humans mean well, he said in a tone one might use when speaking about a child's crayon drawing. Their nuclear weapons probably seemed impressive on their homeworld. But we're dealing with enemies that can survive inside the corona of a star. We need weapons that operate on entirely different principles. Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. The Korthak delegate grunted approvingly. The Velathi crystals chimed in harmony. Everyone understood that the humans, despite their good intentions, simply weren't ready to contribute to a galactic war. However, High Commander Zilex continued, "We appreciate Earth's willingness to join the fight. Your species can assist with logistics, mining operations, and perhaps some basic manufacturing. Leave the real fighting to those who understand it." Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the assembled delegates with an expression that none of them could quite read. When she finally spoke, her voice was perfectly calm. "I see. And how has the war been progressing with your advanced weapons?" The chamber fell silent. The question hung in the air like an uncomfortable truth that no one wanted to acknowledge. High Commander Zilex's silver eyes narrowed. "The Devourers are proving more resilient than anticipated. But with proper coordination of our current arsenal, they've consumed 18 worlds in the past 6 months," Admiral Chen stated flatly, "including 3 defended by your quantum disruptors and 2 protected by Zephyrian plasma arrays. The Velathi reality warping technology managed to slow them down at Kepler 442b, but couldn't stop them." The silence grew deeper and more uncomfortable. These were facts that everyone knew, but no one wanted to discuss openly. "The war," Admiral Chen continued, "is not going well. Your advanced weapons, for all their sophistication, haven't been able to stop an enemy that views matter itself as food. Meanwhile, you dismiss our contribution without even understanding what we're actually offering." Kellyanne Vorth's mandibles spread in irritation. "Human, we have examined your nuclear technology extensively. Our scientists have run complete analyses. Have you?" Admiral Chen's voice carried a new edge. "Have you actually examined our weapons? Or have you simply assumed they're the same as every other species' early atomic experiments?" High Commander Zilex leaned back in his chair. "Are you suggesting that human nuclear weapons are somehow different from the basic fission and fusion devices that every spacefaring civilization develops?" "I'm suggesting," Admiral Chen said quietly, "that you don't know what you don't know." The statement was met with a fresh round of laughter, though this time it sounded forced. There was something in the human's tone that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Very well," said Kellyanne Vorth finally. "Enlighten us, Admiral. What makes human nuclear weapons so special?" Admiral Chen looked around the chamber once more, taking in every face, every expression of smug superiority. When she spoke, her words were chosen very carefully. "The difference isn't in the weapons themselves, it's in how we think about using them." "Explain," demanded High Commander Zilex. "Every species in this chamber has developed nuclear weapons as tools of war. You learned to split atoms, you built bombs, you used them against enemies. Eventually, you moved on to more sophisticated weapons and left nuclear technology behind, except for power generation and some industrial applications." Several delegates nodded. This was exactly what had happened with their own civilizations. "But humans," Admiral Chen continued, "humans are different. We didn't just learn to split atoms and move on. We became obsessed. We built thousands of nuclear weapons. We created delivery systems that could cross our planet in minutes. We developed strategies, doctrines, entire philosophies around nuclear warfare. We spent decades thinking about nothing but how to destroy everything." The laughter in the chamber was completely gone now. A few delegates were beginning to look genuinely uncomfortable. "For nearly a century," Admiral Chen said, "the threat of nuclear annihilation hung over every human decision. Every political choice, every international agreement, every technological development was made in the shadow of atomic fire. We didn't just build nuclear weapons, we built a civilization around them." Kellyanne Vorth clicked his mandibles nervously. That's quite concerning from a psychological perspective, but I fail to see how it makes your weapons more effective. Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber, her expression looked genuinely pleased. Ambassador Vorth, you're thinking like every other species in this room. You're thinking about nuclear weapons as things, as objects to be used. She paused, letting the statement sink in. But humans don't see nuclear weapons as things. We see them as concepts, as ideas that can be modified, combined, and applied in ways that don't necessarily involve nuclear material at all. High Commander Zilex was leaning forward now, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced by something that might have been concern. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying, Admiral Chen replied, that when humans figured out how to split atoms, we didn't stop there. We started thinking about what else we could split. What other fundamental forces could be weaponized? What other building blocks of reality could be turned into tools of destruction? The chamber was completely silent now. Even the background hum of the environmental system seemed to have quieted. The weapons we're offering to the Galactic Defense Council aren't nuclear bombs, Admiral Chen said. They're much worse than that. And the Devourers, for all their ability to consume matter and energy, have never encountered anything quite like human weapons before. Kellyan Vorth found his voice after a long moment. You're speaking in riddles, Admiral. What exactly are you proposing? Admiral Chen reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small, unremarkable-looking cylinder about the size of her thumb. She held it up for everyone to see. This, she said, contains enough destructive potential to crack a moon in half. Not through nuclear fission or fusion, but through something much more fundamental, something that your advanced sensors can't detect because they're not looking for the right kind of energy. She set the cylinder on the table in front of her with a soft click that seemed to echo through the entire chamber. The question isn't whether human weapons can help win this war, Admiral Chen said. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for what happens when we use them. The silence that followed was absolute. 47 different species, each representing civilizations millions of years old, stared at a small metal cylinder that a human claimed could destroy a moon. And for the first time since the Devourer crisis began, none of them knew what to say. 3 weeks after Admiral Chen's presentation to the Galactic Defense Council, the testing facility on Kronos Station buzzed with activity. Representatives from 24 species had gathered to witness what many were calling the human demonstration, though the tone suggested they expected little more than an elaborate magic trick. Dr. Marcus Webb, head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, made final adjustments to the scanning equipment, while aliens of various shapes and sizes watched from behind reinforced barriers. The test chamber itself was a massive sphere of collapsed matter, theoretically strong enough to contain the explosion of a small star. The humans have been very secretive about their preparations, observed Kellyan Vorth to High Commander Zilex. 3 weeks of mysterious equipment shipments and closed-door meetings. One might almost think they're taking this seriously. Zilex's silver eyes reflected amusement. Perhaps they've realized how foolish their initial claims sounded. This could be their attempt to save face before withdrawing their offer gracefully. On the other side of the observation deck, Admiral Chen stood with Dr. Webb, both humans wearing expressions of calm professionalism that several alien observers found unsettling. There was something about human facial expressions that other species struggled to read completely. Where most galactic civilizations had evolved from prey animals and displayed emotions clearly as survival mechanisms, humans had evolved from predators. Their faces could be unnervingly blank when they chose. Beginning test sequence, Dr. Webb announced through the station's communication system. All personnel maintain safe distance, barrier integrity at maximum. In the center of the test chamber sat the same small cylinder Admiral Chen had shown to the Council 3 weeks earlier. It rested on a simple metal pedestal, completely unremarkable except for the faint blue glow emanating from one end. Initiating first phase activation, Dr. Webb continued. Nothing visible happened. The cylinder continued to glow softly, unchanged. Several alien observers began to mutter among themselves. Phase 1 complete. Beginning Phase 2. Again, No apparent change. The Korthak representative, a different individual from the council meeting but equally massive, growled something that translated roughly as, "Waste of time. Sensors are detecting unusual readings," announced the station's Andromedian science officer. "Energy patterns consistent with, I'm not certain. The signature doesn't match any known weapon type." High Commander Zilex leaned forward. "What kind of energy patterns?" "They appear to be quantum fluctuations in the zero-point field, but that's impossible. No technology exists to weaponize vacuum energy on this scale." Dr. Webb's voice came through the speakers again. "Phase 2 complete. Warning. Beginning Phase 3 activation. All personnel verify barrier integrity." This time, something did change. The blue glow from the cylinder began to pulse in a rhythm that seemed almost organic. The station's gravitational sensors registered brief fluctuations, as if space itself was being gently disturbed. "What exactly are we looking at?" demanded Kellyan Vorth. Admiral Chen stepped to the communication panel. "You're looking at a weapon that doesn't destroy matter or energy. It destroys the rules that govern how matter and energy interact." Before anyone could ask what that meant, Dr. Webb continued the countdown. Phase 3 stable. Beginning final activation sequence. All stations report ready status. "Gravitational sensors showing massive anomalies," the science officer reported, his voice tight with concern. "Whatever they're doing in there is affecting local space-time." Phase 4 activation in 10 seconds. The assembled alien dignitaries pressed closer to the observation windows. Despite their skepticism, something about the human weapons test was generating readings that their most advanced instruments couldn't fully explain. 5 seconds. The cylinder's glow intensified. But something else was happening. The air around it seemed to shimmer, as if reality itself was becoming unstable. 3, 2, 1. Activation complete. For a moment, nothing happened. The cylinder sat on its pedestal, glowing peacefully. Several aliens began to turn away, preparing dismissive comments about human theatrics. Then, the test target, a block of military-grade duraloli positioned 50 meters from the cylinder, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not disintegrated. It was there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind a perfectly spherical void in space that made the eye hurt to look at directly. "What happened to the target?" High Commander Zilex demanded. Dr. Webb consulted his readings. "It's gone." "Gone where?" "What kind of disintegration beam?" "No beam," Admiral Chen interrupted. "No energy discharge. No particle stream. The target didn't get destroyed. It stopped existing." The science officer's hands were trembling as he read his instruments. "Sensors confirm. The target material hasn't been converted to energy or scattered as particles. The matter that comprised the target is simply absent from reality." Kellyan Vorth's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "That's impossible. Matter cannot simply disappear. Conservation of mass and energy are local laws," Admiral Chen said calmly. "They apply within the framework of normal space-time. Our weapons operate by temporarily suspending those laws in a localized area." The observation deck fell silent as the implications sank in. Every species present had built their understanding of physics around certain fundamental constants. The idea that those constants could be selectively disabled was terrifying. "How?" High Commander Zilex asked, his usual composure cracking. Dr. Webb looked to Admiral Chen, who nodded permission to explain. "The process began with our nuclear weapons research. But it didn't end there. Humans spent decades thinking about atomic destruction, which led us to think about the underlying structures that make atoms possible in the first place. We started asking questions that other species apparently never considered," Admiral Chen added. "What if the strong nuclear force could be temporarily turned off? What if the speed of light could be changed in a small area? What if gravity could be reversed or eliminated entirely? But those are fundamental constants of the universe," protested the Taraxi representative. "Are they, Doctor?" Webb asked. Or are they just the normal operating parameters of local space-time? Humans discovered that reality is much more flexible than most species assume. On the screen displaying the test chamber, the spherical void where the target had been was slowly shrinking. Normal space was reasserting itself, but the process left ripples that the sensors could barely detect. The weapon we just tested is relatively small scale, Admiral Chen explained. It creates a zone, roughly 10 meters in diameter, where the laws of physics become optional. Anything caught in that zone when the effect triggers stops existing in any meaningful sense. Kellyan Vorth found his voice. The power requirements for such technology must be enormous. Actually, no, Doctor, Webb replied. That's the elegant part. We're not fighting against the laws of physics, we're temporarily convincing reality that different laws apply. It requires very little energy because we're not forcing change. We're just suggesting it. High Commander Zilex was staring at the diminishing void on the screen. How large can you make these zones? Admiral Chen and Dr. Webb exchanged a look that several observers found deeply unsettling. That depends, Admiral Chen said carefully, on how large we need them to be. Over the following days, news of the human weapons test spread throughout the galaxy faster than official channels could contain it. The response was immediate and divided. Some species demanded that humanity be granted full partnership in the defense effort. Others insisted that weapons capable of selectively disabling physics were too dangerous to use under any circumstances. The Devourers, however, were not interested in galactic politics. While the Council debated, they consumed another 3 worlds in rapid succession, each attack bringing them closer to the galaxy's core systems. It was during the emergency session, called to address the latest losses, that Admiral Chen received the authorization she had been waiting for. The motion passes, announced High Command Zilex, his voice heavy with reluctance. Earth is granted permission to deploy experimental weapons against Devourer forces, under the condition that human military assets remain under Council oversight. Admiral Chen stood slowly. I appreciate the Council's trust. However, I must respectfully decline the oversight condition. The chamber erupted in protests from dozens of species. Admiral, Kellyan Vorth said when order was restored, surely you understand that weapons of such potential danger cannot be deployed without proper safeguards. I understand, Admiral Chen replied, that the safeguards you're proposing would make our weapons useless. The techniques we use require split-second timing and absolute operational security. Any delay or compromise could be catastrophic. Catastrophic for whom? Demanded the Korthak representative. Admiral Chen looked directly at him. For everyone. The weapons we're offering to use against the Devourers aren't the most dangerous ones in our arsenal. They're just the ones we're comfortable using near inhabited systems. This statement caused another round of concerned murmuring throughout the chamber. Are you threatening the Council? High Commander Zilex asked, his tone carefully controlled. No, Admiral Chen said simply. I'm explaining why human weapons require human operators. We've spent 300 years learning how to use technologies that can accidentally unmake reality. We know the safety protocols, the fallback procedures, the emergency shutoffs. No other species has that experience. Because no other species has been insane enough to pursue such research, Kellyan Vorth muttered. Admiral Chen smiled, and several delegates were reminded uncomfortably that humans had evolved from predators. Perhaps. But now that insanity might be the only thing that can save the galaxy. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Devourers were winning, and conventional weapons had proven ineffective. Finally, with great reluctance, the Council voted to give humanity complete operational authority over their own weapons deployment. When do you propose to begin? High Commander Zilex asked. Admiral Chen checked her wrist chronometer. Our ships departed Earth orbit 6 hours ago. They should be arriving at the Devourer fleet's current position within the next 18 hours. The silence that followed was profound. While the galaxy's leaders had been debating, humanity had already committed to action. You deployed weapons without Council approval? Kellyan Vorth asked. We deployed our ships, Admiral Chen corrected. The weapons won't be activated until we receive confirmation that conventional methods have failed. But given the Devourer's recent success rate, we felt it was prudent to be prepared. High Commander Zilex leaned back in his chair, studying the human admiral with new respect and considerable wariness. Admiral Chen, I'm beginning to suspect that your species is far more dangerous than any of us realized. Admiral Chen's smile didn't waver. High Commander, you have no idea how dangerous humans can be when we put our minds to it. The Devourers are about to find out. On the primary display screen, red markers showed the positions of Devourer fleet elements advancing toward the Rigel system. Blue markers indicated the positions of human ships moving to intercept. The two forces would meet in less than 18 hours. For the first time since the crisis began, the Galactic Defense Council found itself hoping that the weapons they had mocked might actually work. Because if they didn't, there would be nothing left to defend. Admiral Chen gathered her materials and prepared to leave the chamber. Before reaching the door, she turned back to address the assembled delegates one final time. I want everyone here to understand something. When our weapons engage the Devourer fleet tomorrow, you're going to see things that challenge everything you think you know about how the universe works. You're going to watch us fight an enemy that consumes matter itself, using weapons that convince reality to temporarily forget its own rules. She paused, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. And if we succeed, you'll finally understand why humans are the only species to ever make nuclear weapons, and then keep building more dangerous ones. We don't just solve problems. We solve problems so completely that they can never happen again. The chamber remained silent as Admiral Chen walked out, leaving behind a room full of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, all of them wondering what they had just unleashed. The Rigel system had been humanity's first major colony outside their home solar system. 3 billion humans lived on its 7 habitable worlds, making it both strategically valuable and emotionally significant to Earth's military commanders. When the Devourer fleet emerged from dark space 18 light minutes from Rigel Prime, every military force in the galaxy understood what was at stake. Aboard the GSC Times Vigilance Asterisk, High Commander Zilex watched the tactical displays with growing dread. The Devourer fleet was massive, over 300 ships, each 1 kilometer long, and composed of matter so dense it warped space around itself. Previous encounters had shown that conventional weapons barely scratched their hulls, and their ability to convert destroyed matter into energy meant that damaged ships often became stronger rather than weaker. Human vessels have taken position at the edge of the engagement zone, reported his tactical officer. 12 ships, significantly smaller than the Devourer formation. Zilex nodded grimly. 12 ships against 300. Even with their mysterious weapons, the odds seemed impossible. The human fleet had arranged itself in a defensive formation that made no tactical sense to any observer. Instead of concentrating their firepower or using the asteroids for cover, they had spread out across several light minutes of space, each ship isolated and apparently vulnerable. They're either completely insane or they know something we don't, muttered Kellyan Vorth, who had insisted on observing the battle despite the significant risk to his own ship. With humans, Zilex replied, those two possibilities aren't mutually exclusive. On the human flagship Times Prometheus Asterisk, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge reviewing final preparations. Around her, technicians made last-minute adjustments to equipment that bore no resemblance to conventional weapons. Instead of gun batteries or missile tubes, the ship's hull bristled with strange geometric arrays that seemed to bend light around them. All ships report ready status, her communications officer announced. Weapon systems fully charged and synchronized. Thank you, Lieutenant. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Today we face an enemy that has consumed 21 worlds and shows no sign of slowing. Conventional weapons have failed. Conventional strategies have failed. But we are not a conventional species. She paused, watching the Devourer fleet adjust its course toward Rigel Prime. Our weapons operate on principles that other species consider impossible. Today, we're going to prove that impossible is just another word for something nobody has tried yet. All ships, prepare for reality modification protocols. Across the human fleet, Crews initiated procedures that had never been used in actual combat. On each ship, reality manipulation engines came online, each one capable of temporarily rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in a localized area. The Devourer fleet continued its approach, apparently unaware that anything unusual was happening. Their ships moved with the inexorable patience of forces that had never encountered meaningful resistance. First contact in 90 seconds, Admiral Chen's tactical officer reported. All ships, commence Phase 1 activation. Throughout the human fleet, strange energies began to build. Space itself seemed to shiver as 12 different reality modification fields started to overlap and resonate. The effect was invisible to most sensors, but gravitational detectors throughout the system registered fluctuations that should have been impossible. Aboard the Times Vigilance Asterisk, Zilex watched his instruments with growing alarm. What are the humans doing? Our sensors are detecting massive space-time distortions, but there's no visible energy discharge. Perhaps they're malfunctioning? Suggested Kellyanne Vorth hopefully. Before anyone could respond, the Devourer fleet reached the edge of the human defensive perimeter. Phase 2 activation, Admiral Chen commanded. What happened next redefined every observer's understanding of warfare. The lead Devourer ship, a massive dreadnought the size of a small moon, simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not damaged, it ceased to be present in reality. Where moments before there had been millions of tons of collapsed matter, there was now empty space that seemed somehow more empty than it should have been. Impossible, breathed Zilex. Our sensors show no energy discharge, no particle beam, no gravitational weapons fire. How? 2 more Devourer ships vanished in rapid succession, leaving behind spherical voids that made the eye water to look at directly. Phase 3, Admiral Chen announced calmly. The remaining human ships opened fire, but their weapons defied every known law of physics. Beams of what could only be described as solid darkness lanced out from their hulls, and wherever these beams touched Devourer ships, fundamental forces simply stopped working. Gravity ceased to function. The strong nuclear force shut down. The speed of light became variable. Devourer vessels, built to survive inside stars and feed on the matter of planets, found themselves helpless against weapons that didn't destroy them but simply convinced the universe that they shouldn't exist in their current form. My God, whispered Kellyanne Vorth. They're not fighting the Devourers. They're fighting reality itself. And winning. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. 300 Devourer ships, representing the largest fleet ever assembled by their species, were systematically edited out of existence by 12 human vessels, using weapons that operated outside the normal framework of space and time. When it was over, the only evidence that the Devourer fleet had ever existed was a field of gravitational anomalies that would take decades to dissipate, and a series of holes in space that slowly filled themselves as reality reasserted its normal rules. All ships, stand down from combat alert, Admiral Chen announced. Mission accomplished. The silence that followed was profound. Across dozens of observer ships representing every major civilization in the galaxy, crews stared at their instruments in disbelief. The readings were clear, but the implications were staggering. Humanity had just demonstrated weapons that could selectively disable the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Admiral Chen, came Zilix's voice over the communication channel. What exactly did we just witness? Admiral Chen's response was broadcast across the entire observer fleet. You witnessed the deployment of applied conceptual physics. High Commander. Weapons that don't destroy matter or energy, but temporarily convince local space-time that different laws of physics apply. But the power requirements, began Kellyanne Vorth, are minimal, Admiral Chen interrupted. We're not forcing change against the universe's will. We're working within quantum uncertainties that exist at the deepest levels of reality. Every particle, every force, every law of physics exists in a state of probability until observed and measured. Our weapons simply change what gets observed. Dr. Webb's voice joined the conversation from the Times Prometheus asterisk. Think of reality as a vast computer program running on quantum hardware. Most species try to fight that program with bigger computers. Humans learn to hack the code. The implications hit the observer fleet like a physical force. If humans could selectively rewrite physics, then every weapon, every defense, every technology that other species had developed was suddenly obsolete. Admiral Chen, High Commander Zilek said carefully, your species has just demonstrated the ability to eliminate any threat in the galaxy. What do you intend to do with such power? The question carried weight that extended far beyond military concerns. Every species present was suddenly acutely aware that humanity now possessed weapons that could erase entire civilizations without warning and with no possible defense. Admiral Chen's response came after a long pause. High Commander, humans have been living with the ability to destroy their own world for over 300 years. We learned very early that having ultimate weapons doesn't mean using them carelessly. During our nuclear age, she continued, we developed concepts like mutually assured destruction, deterrence theory, and strategic stability. We spent generations learning how to possess the power to end everything without actually ending everything. What's your point, Admiral? Kellyanne Vorth asked. My point is that humans understand something about ultimate weapons that other species apparently don't. Having the power to destroy everything is meaningless if you can't control when and how that power is used. The real strength isn't in the weapon itself, it's in the wisdom to know when not to use it. Dr. Webb added, our reality manipulation weapons require unanimous consent from Earth's entire Defense Council before activation. Every deployment must be justified not just to our military command, but to our entire civilization. We built safeguards into the weapons themselves that prevent their use without proper authorization. But you could override those safeguards, Zilex pointed out. Yes, Admiral Chen admitted. Just like any species could choose to use their most devastating weapons against defenseless targets. The question isn't whether we could abuse this power. The question is whether we will. And how do we know you won't? Demanded the Korthak representative. Admiral Chen's answer surprised everyone. Because we already had the chance, and we didn't. What do you mean? We've had reality manipulation weapons for 15 years. We could have used them to conquer the galaxy before anyone knew they existed. We could have eliminated every potential threat to humanity and established ourselves as the dominant species. Instead, we chose to join the Galactic Defense Council as equals and offer our weapons in defense of everyone. End quote. End quote. The truth of this statement settled over the observer fleet like a heavy weight. Humanity had possessed ultimate weapons for over a decade, and had chosen to use them only when other species requested their help. Furthermore, Admiral Chen continued, these weapons only work if the universe allows them to work. Reality has its own safeguards. Our weapons can temporarily modify local physics, but only within certain limits, and only for brief periods. Try to push too hard or too far, and reality pushes back. Hard. What does that mean? Asked Kellyanne Vorth. Dr. Webb answered, it means our weapons are self-limiting. The universe itself prevents them from being used to destroy everything. We can eliminate specific threats, but we can't rewrite all of reality permanently. Nature has its own checks and balances. Think of it as cosmic immune system, Admiral Chen added. Small, localized changes are allowed. Large-scale or permanent modifications get rejected. The universe has been running on the same basic rules for billions of years. It doesn't appreciate attempts at wholesale revision. High Commander Zilex studied the tactical displays where the gravitational anomalies left by the Devourer fleet were slowly fading. Admiral Chen, speaking for the Galactic Defense Council, I must ask, what do you want from us now? The question hung in space like a challenge. Every species present understood that the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Humanity now possessed weapons that made all other military technology obsolete. They could demand anything and have the power to enforce it. Admiral Chen's answer surprised everyone once again. Nothing, she said simply. We want exactly what we wanted before this battle. To be full partners in the galactic community. To contribute our knowledge and abilities alongside everyone else's. To help defend civilization against threats like the Devourers. You don't want special status? Territories? Resources? Zilex asked skeptically. High Commander, we just demonstrated that we can eliminate any threat to our interests with 12 ships. Why would we need to demand anything? If we wanted special treatment, we could simply take it. Then why don't you? Kellyanvorth asked. Admiral Chen's answer revealed something fundamental about human nature that other species had never understood. Because taking things by force is easy. Building something worthwhile requires cooperation. Humanity could rule the galaxy through fear, but we'd rather earn our place through contribution. The universe is vast and full of wonders we haven't discovered yet. We'd rather explore it alongside friends than conquer it alone. The communication channels fell silent as every species processed this response. The idea that ultimate power might be used for cooperation rather than domination was so foreign to most galactic civilizations that they struggled to accept it. Besides, Admiral Chen added with what sounded like genuine humor, ruling the galaxy sounds like a lot of paperwork. This comment, despite everything that had just happened, actually drew laughter from several observer ships. Over the following weeks, the galaxy struggled to adapt to its new reality. The Devourer threat had been completely eliminated, not just the fleet that attacked Rigel, but every Devourer ship and installation throughout the galaxy. Human vessels had systematically located and erased every trace of the species that had consumed 21 worlds. The process had taken less than a month. Some species demanded that humanity's weapons be banned or regulated. Others insisted on forming military alliances with Earth. A few civilizations attempted to develop their own reality manipulation weapons, with results that ranged from complete failure to accidentally erasing their own research facilities. Through it all, humanity maintained its position. They would continue to develop and deploy their weapons as defensive tools. They would share the basic principles with other species, but only under carefully controlled conditions and with extensive safeguards. They would not use their weapons to settle political disputes or enforce their will on other civilizations. Most importantly, they would continue to act as partners rather than rulers in galactic affairs. The Galactic Defense Council was restructured to account for humanity's unique capabilities, but humans insisted on maintaining equal voting rights rather than assuming control. They wanted influence, not dominance. Admiral Chen's final address to the reformed council summarized humanity's position perfectly. We didn't develop these weapons to rule the galaxy. We developed them to save it. Now that the immediate threat is gone, our goal is to make sure such threats never arise again. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through cooperation and shared vigilance. The universe is vast and full of unknowns. Today's impossible threat could become tomorrow's existential crisis. By working together, sharing knowledge, and maintaining strong defenses, we can face whatever comes next. Humanity offers its weapons and expertise freely in defense of all civilized worlds. We ask only for the same cooperation and respect that we offer to others. The response from the galaxy was mixed but ultimately positive. Most species recognized that humanity's restraint was more impressive than their weapons. Anyone could destroy, with ultimate power. It took wisdom to protect without dominating. Years later, historians would mark the Battle of Rigel as the moment when humanity truly joined the galactic community. Not as conquerors or supplicants, but as equals who happened to possess the most dangerous weapons ever conceived. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's stupid weapons. They weren't laughing anymore. They were too busy being grateful.